What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Hoops Betting Hour, powered by PicksWise and presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, the Jeff Nadu, the big man on campus. Got my name mixed up there. The big man on campus, Jeff Nadu. Hope you're all having a great day wherever you are. It is Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Another busy weekend in basketball. Started out the weekend on a high note last night, 2-1. We'll take it. Had a good guest yesterday, Ian Cameron, and have a great guest today. We continue to bring on the best of the best, and I got to tell you, this guy is one of the best. I used to do videos with him a long time ago. He's really come up in this business, really started out, and I think he would say at the bottom, really kind of worked his way up, put that work in like a lot of people have, and the fruits of his labor have shown. It's the great Whale Capper. He's doing some great things with, how about this, NBC Sports. Whale Capper, you're killing it right now.
Who would have thought, man? Started an anonymous Twitter account 4 or 5 years ago.
Is that how it started, really?
Yeah. I have a full-time job as an engineer. I didn't know it was going to go like this at all. But it's super, super fun. And I've been enjoying the content side of things. Obviously, winning sports betting is its own reward. Sure. But when you can do it in a public setting and kind of get people involved and give people some winners, it makes it that much sweeter.
Yeah, one thing I got to give you respect for, Will Capper, and I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of people move around. One thing I always say about you, you've always been willing to do shows with everybody. I think one of the great, actually it's not great, but one of the biggest regrets I have in the business is some of the behavior I had early in this business, where like I had certain beefs, and it just kind of got in the way. And I always give you a lot of respect for, going on and no matter how small or whatever, you're always willing to do stuff, and it's really worked out for you. Great work.
I got to say though, that you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, because if you're not genuine,
yeah, exactly.
If you're not like, look, this is who I am, like it or hate it, then it's not going to work.
Well,
you can't look back and be like, oh, I should have been fake nice to people I don't like.
Yeah,
like right. no way, right. No way.
Right, and it has worked out in other ways for me. So it's a gift and a curse. But you've always done a great job. You've really worked your way up, and I did not know that you started an anonymous account. I didn't know that. I always thought you were pretty out there, but I guess, come to think of it, maybe you weren't. I think you were just that whale icon, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. For a long time. Yeah.
Then you started the show with Andy, right?
Yeah. So like in my personal life, I do engineering consulting, and I didn't really have like a very well, like my name was still kind of getting out there in my little niche of consulting space. And I was nervous that hey, I go meet these people in a meeting about engineering earthquake conference, and then they Google me, and the first thing that comes up is like all this degenerate bullshit on Madrid Open tennis plays, and people are like, whoa, what is this guy doing? Like, what?
Who is this guy?
Yeah, so who is this guy? And so back then it wasn't like super well accepted. Sports betting was it was a little cloak and dagger, it was a little behind the black curtain. And
I still remember I've had people, and I mean, this was probably 5 years ago, but like when I would go out with a girl, which might be surprising to a lot of people, but when I would go out with a girl, I would tell them what I did, and they would go, "So you're a bookie?"
Yeah, of course.
And it's like no.
Isn't that illegal?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Are you in the mafia?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. But yeah, I get it. But I'm glad you're able to kind of do your thing now and not worry about it. And you've done a great job. NBA time, it's starting to heat up as they say. The play-in stuff's coming up. The season is winding down. How's the season been going for you? Have you found it tougher, easier? How's the season went for you?
It's been bizarre.
Yeah.
Normally I grind up through the season, and it's a pretty clean trajectory up. With a couple of dips, I'll struggle from time to time. This season has been just bananas, though. The first up into the All-Star break, I was hitting almost 68%, And I was like, this can't be. I would change my approach entirely from playing kind of a broader, maybe 5-7 plays a day on sides and totals. I just was like, okay, I'm just going to pick like 3 sides. Totals were very, very, very inconsistent early. So I was like, forget it. Let's just focus on sides. I got into a game where I was kind of reading a lot of the beat reporter tweets and kind of overnight stuff and trying to kind of guess who was going to be available. Right. And I got pretty lucky guessing who was going to be available, yes and no, in the first couple of months. And so I had a ton of success on sides coming into the All-Star break. Then the week before the All-Star break, I lost 3 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday. And I was like, man, I was on an absolute heater. I just gave all this back. Okay, well, I'm going to take a break, obviously. All-Star break comes and goes. We come out of the All-Star break, and it was just, I couldn't find a winner to save my life. I was getting closing line value. The market was with me. I was correct on projecting injuries. Like I wasn't like getting sandbagged by last-minute stuff.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter. I just got absolutely hammered the entire month of March. Worst month of betting of my entire life. And I was almost like, well, maybe I should just hang it up until we get to the playoffs here, because I obviously don't know what the hell is going on. And then right around the end of March, it turned around a little bit. And then April was sweet. I'm back into, solid form as we kind of come down the home stretch here. I kind of figured out once April rolled around that, there was like a clear class of 8 teams that were out of the mix for the playoffs and really were honestly tanking. And the way I was playing those teams is you waited until they had a good, honest performance. Mm-hmm. Like they just get a big win or almost get a win against a good team. And then the next time out just bombs away fate against them.
What's funny,
there's a game that worked out amazingly.
There's a game like that today. And we're
which one? Let me take a look. Let me see if I can already pick it out. Let's see.
You got 5 seconds. 5.
I mean, is it Houston? No, Houston.
Yes.
Houston. Yeah, they were on. Yeah, you're right. They gave you an honest effort yesterday against the Bucks. Yeah. They covered it, but that was a closer game even than the final score.
Yeah, and we'll get into
if they don't get off the bus, I won't be surprised.
Current situation for them as well. It's not particularly good from a personnel standpoint. So, as Whale kind of alluded to, I'm glad he's doing well. Glad you're finding your stride a little bit. I'll tell you what, we've found our stride. At least I have, just a little bit on this show. I had a bad Thursday night, but Friday night was solid. Props are doing some good things. Cool. Hit with the side with the Suns last night, so. I was very happy with that. A couple of thoughts from last night's card. A nice win for the Suns. That line just, I think when the lay better looked at it, I just thought it was Knicks or nothing for most. And it ended up, I think, being that. Suns use a big second half to kind of pull away and win by margin. Really good win for Phoenix last night. Whale mentioned if you laid the points of the Bucks, it's one of those games where they just didn't really care that much. They knew they were going to win, but you look at that roster for the Rockets last night, just 8 players played, and most of them were players you've probably never heard of, but they hung around and did their thing. So shout out to those kids that were in there and tried to make a little bit of a difference. Sixers with a bizarre effort against the Pelicans, but I'm not exactly surprised just because they had been beating up teams for the most part, but a weird effort against a pretty undermanned Pelican group without Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. Just kind of a weird effort there. How'd you do last night? Any bets of note?
I had the Suns, which was fun because that looked dead in the water until the fourth quarter. But honestly, like the way I broke down my cap, I was like, I think this is going to be a 1-2 possession game until the fourth quarter. And then I think the Suns can really put on the afterburners. Yeah. And that's how it played, which I was
funny you say that. Same game happened a couple of weeks ago. Same thing happened.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that was kind of, I kind of looked at that. I was like, there's no reason they can't do this again. That was a fun one. That was the biggest position I had yesterday was Suns. And honestly, I would have passed the game entirely if it had stayed at 8. I made it like 8.5 and it opened 8 and got bet down to 6.5. And I was like, okay, well, this is stupid. I got to go hard against this. And it worked out well. So that was a fun one. I had the Miami Heat Again, I kind of speculated from reading the reports that Jimmy Butler was going to go. So I got in at 6.5 early. That closed at like 8 or something. And they held on. That was a close call. So I had two solid winners. And then I had Philly also.
Okay.
I played them at 9. And of course, I had heard from one of my insider friends that Zion, the broken finger was going to come across. So I just jumped on that one early. And they were dominating in a lot of the first half of that game. And then the third quarter was just a complete and total no-show. And I don't want to overreact because it was a pretty meaningless game, although obviously the Sixers desperately want the 1 seed. The 1 seed in the East is valuable. That means you don't have to play the Bucks in round 2 or the Nets in round 2. Like, you want the 1 seed badly. So the Sixers should have been motivated. However, that second unit, the offense is just putrid. And it's not like the Pelicans are all NBA defense. So I really was kind of disappointed in that second unit offensive effort. And really, the minutes that Joel Embiid is off the floor, like,
they're awful.
They're bad, man.
No, they are.
And
that's
ultimately, I think if they lose a tight series, that's going to be why. They need depth. And I know in the playoffs, like, depth is a lot less important than the regular season because they shorten the rotations, and you can probably get 40 minutes a night out of Embiid if you need it. But still, like, you're going to be holding on for dear life every minute he's on the bench.
But here's where, and this is what will happen in the playoffs, because this team, it's always happened to. In my lifetime, they've never won the NBA Finals, and I don't know if they will, but this is the year that they need to obviously go for it, because I think you can make the case they are the best team in the NBA. Joel Embiid will get injured, watch, in like the second game of the playoffs, and they'll whimper out. That's what happens, man.
I'm not involved with them in the future, so I'm not going to wish anything bad on Jojo, but that's just how it doesn't seem crazy.
That's how it goes sometimes. I will say this, there's been continued value and they've elevated it, and I've said before, I've been banging out these Seth Curry props. They continue to be too low. He has volume, man. I think he hit it by halftime last night.
He's a huge part of their offense.
Yeah. He's done a nice job. You would also argue one thing before we get into the card. You would agree that sports betting, and I've always kind of said this, sports betting is very much about kind of being able to visualize and just forecast. You have to be able to forecast who's going to play. Info that doesn't mean anything. I think a lot of people that have come on here have said the same thing. They were betting overnight and they were getting burned because maybe they only had one or two sources. But again, being able to foreshadow, kind of understand what's true and what's not, is one of the bigger keys to at least pro sports. You would agree, right?
Oh, 100%. NFL, if you're betting early in the week, you better have a very strong read on player health and availability, especially the key guys. And in the NBA overnights, if you're going to play overnights, you can't necessarily be betting into there. There have been a handful of markets where at first glance, the number is wrong. You're like, no way. Mm-hmm. And if you dig a little, like read between the lines of the coach's comments or read the beat reporter, comments from the locker room after, you're like, oh, Kawhi's not playing tomorrow. Right. Like there's a pretty clear market indication sometimes that a surprise is coming. And so I get it. Like if you can kind of see the known unknowns, right. Like someone knows, not me, not everyone, but someone knows. And that's why this line is effed. Then you can avoid some of those problems, because I feel like a lot of people who consistently get burned, the reason is they're like they have like some power numbers that are good. They're seeing a market is wrong by 2 points. And they're like, well, that's a play. And then the reason it ends up being wrong is it turned out someone knew that player X was going to get rest. Right. So if you can avoid those, that's part one. And then if you do nothing else, it should be 50-50. It should be a coin flip over the course of the season. Sometimes you're going to get burned. Sometimes you're going to get the benefit. Right. And then if you go a step further and you try to kind of think about, okay, well, let's make some assumptions about the guys who are questionable. Like let's look at tonight. Like Detroit's playing Philly. Philly's a 10-point favorite. Detroit has Jeremy Grant questionable. that's a meaningful question mark.
Now he's targeted this game to come back.
You took the words right out of my mouth, right? Like you dig a little bit and you're like, okay, is he questionable or is he probable? And I would look at his quotes from the coach 4 or 5 days ago and say, he probably plays. And then similarly, like Washington at Indy, you have a guy like Brogdon questionable. He's super important to their offense. And I would look at that and say he was expected to come back earlier this week and then trended in the wrong direction all week. And so I would look at that questionable more as a doubtful.
Well, and then you have this was funny too. It wasn't really funny, but at the time it was funny. A couple weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Bradley Beal had like a gruesome injury. Like there was talk like he might not play again like that this season. Like during that, it was like a really bad leg injury.
Yeah, it looked nasty. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And then the next day they come back. It's like, well, he's fine. Nothing really happened. He might play tonight, but the line made it clear that he probably wasn't going to play. Then he comes out and drops 44, I think, against the Spurs that night. And it's just like
that's one of those that falls into the 50-50, right? Like, yeah. I mean, you can try to get on the right side of those, but somebody as important as Beal, if it is truly 50-50, those are easy to scratch off.
But even the books had it wrong. I mean, I think they even shaded that he wasn't going to play, and he ended up playing. So, yeah, again, use your own judgment on these things. But again, if you read into enough, as Wales said, you can kind of figure out what's going to go on. All right, let's get into it here. We'll start out with the Philadelphia 76ers, my hometown Philadelphia 76ers hosting Detroit. Philly laying 10.5. It shaded a little to almost 115 here. Total is 218. Look, obviously you mentioned a little bit of a scare last night for the Sixers. Another game where, on paper, they're going to win. We continue to quest for the 1 seed, the Sixers. We mentioned Jeremy Grant probably going to be back tonight. That's a big get back for the Pistons. This is a team that we've talked over the show. When you look at Grant, 22.5 points a game this season, really has been at times their bell cow on both sides of the ball. And they've been a good ATS team. Detroit is the worst team in the Eastern Conference. However, 35-30 against the number. They have found ways to fight. They have found ways to play hard. And there is some excitement down the road in some of these young guys, whether it's Jeremy Grant or Isaiah Stewart or Sekou Doumbouya or Sadiq Bey or whoever. I really like what they did in the draft last year, some of their guys. And I think going forward, this is going to be a team that continues to build. I don't know if they'll ever get back to the Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton days. But again, they're starting to build, and they've been good against the number. Keep in mind as well, the Sixers this year, 4-5 is a double-digit favorite against the number. Haven't been great laying a big number. So I will say, though, I'm going back to the well again. This is something that, until further notice, I'm going to be playing. If they keeping these numbers where they are, they're just too low. Now, the worry here is a blowout, okay? After a close game, you just don't want it to happen. But he has been an integral role in this offense. He's getting 25 to 30 minutes a game. The volume has been there from three. Seth Curry, over 11.5 points. I'm just going to keep betting it. It's just that simple.
Okay. This was the first one that I scratched off, largely because I'm annoyed with the Sixers for screwing me last night. But all of the points are fair. I would say that my numbers have value on the Pistons at 10, but since going ice cold through March, one of the things that has kept me out of trouble was taking the big dogs with the points. When you really don't know what their motivation is going to be. So this was Detroit or pass as I looked at it, ended up just passing. But, it's not a great matchup for either team here, really. I could tell you that if you want to play the Sixers down the stretch here, one way or the other, like get a sense of how Danny Green is doing shooting wise. He's a hot hand guy. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's cold, he's cold. Yep. And their offense is fragile enough that matters. So that's kind of the two handicapping wrinkles I would bring into this one. But ultimately, I passed.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I mean, obviously, I think, gun to my head, you made me pick it. Pistons have been good, in these kind of point areas. As far as you're going to get Grant back, there's going to be some sort of boost. They've had some, decent efforts. I'm not going to lie. I mean, they beat the Grizzlies the other night, hung right there with the Pistons, with the Hornets. They hung around with the Mavs, beat the Hawks. So this is a team that, they fight, they play hard. They're not a team like Houston or a team that's just really crawled away and they have no interest in hanging around and playing. So you got to give the Pistons a little bit of respect there.
Yeah.
I'll keep rocking with Curry. These have been very solid. As I said, 11 or more in 7 of the last 9 games. So he has been very solid. Also, one other thing to keep an eye on. We've talked about this on this show. FanDuel has put out some really high numbers with Isaiah Stewart from a rebounding standpoint. This is a very good Philadelphia rebounding team. So if you're getting a high number there, he's really struggled rebounding the basketball lately. So these numbers, I think, are just a little too high. If you get anything over 10.5, I think you have to look at maybe an under with Isaiah Stewart. Next one.
It's a fun look.
Yeah. Stewart is – there was a number the other week we had out. He had like – his total was 13.5 rebounds in one game.
Wow.
It was really high, some weird high numbers. This should be a fun game. Wild number here. Washington headed on the road to take on Indiana. Washington laying 3.5, total 249. This is the highest total of the season.
I think rightfully so.
Yeah. I mean, why shouldn't it? I mean, the last time these two teams played, 154 to 141. And keep in mind, that was in regular 48 minutes. Both teams obviously, continuing to kind of jump towards that 8 spot. The Pacers are beginning to kind of breathe down the Hornets' neck. Both are involved. Both need the game. Both are very fast, top 3 in pace. The guard play is very good for the Wizards, as we know. It's not great for Indiana. And that's one thing I wanted to point out. I was pretty impressed with the fact that they were able to score 141 points with the rotation they threw out there that night. I mean, obviously outside of Sabonis and LeVert, not a ton of offensive talent here. I mean, Sumner, the Holidays, O'Shea, Brissett, Doug McDermott, a lot of guys that you don't really want out there playing high 20s in minutes, but did a pretty good job. Both teams don't defend. Without Miles Turner, Indiana is a mess defensively. I'm not on this game. I don't really know what to do with it. I think Washington would probably be a lean just because they have played very well. Indiana's been kind of a mess off the court. I don't really like them without Brogdon or Turner, and haven't really liked them without those guys. But again, I'm not sure if you can set this total high enough. Small lean to the over, but I just don't really want to bet it over this high.
Yeah. I'm on the Wizards here. It's a low confidence, low to middle, medium confidence play for me. Fair price on this one for me is 5. So 3.5. I don't mind laying the 3 on the road with the Wiz. I really, over the last month, the Wizards are playing like a top 15 team in the NBA pretty clearly, which is cool because they have the talent. You just didn't know if they were going to actually pull it together. Whereas the Pacers are playing like a bottom 10 team. And you're right, the off-court stuff is concerning. The way that the Pacers no-showed this week against the Kings was a problem. And I'm expecting that Brogdon is scratched. Lamb probably scratched. Sumner probably scratched. I think these guys who are questionable right now don't end up making the court. They gave you an honest effort against the Hawks on Thursday, but I would also say that was a lot of kind of, players were angry that they lost to McMillan last time they played the Hawks, and they were trying, just had a little bit extra motivation. I'm not sure what gets them up for this game. They know their coach this year is getting fired. Some of these guys don't like playing for this guy anyway. So I can see this one getting out of hand. And, the Wizards are absolutely in perfect form to be a tough out in round 1 of the playoffs. So I'll take the Wiz with the points.
Yeah, I actually like that play, and I'm going to tell you why. If you look at this Indiana team, there is a wild roller coaster of scores when they face teams that don't have good guard play per se. So right now, the Kings have bad guard play. They don't have Fox. They don't have Halliburton. The Thunder, their guard play is trash. They play pretty well defensively. But when they face teams with good guard play, this team just destroyed. I mean, look at their scores. I mean, it's been a prime example. One night they'll score, the scores will be in the 270s and 280s. Then the next are in the 190s. I mean, it's weird. They cannot guard good guards. And
that's true.
You have two of the best duos in the NBA here in Beal and Russell Westbrook. I just think this is a bad matchup for the Pacers. And as you said and kind of alluded to, they just don't have a ton of talent. They don't have their good guard play in. And I think the only way to really have a little interest is if Brogdon was completely healthy and Turner was completely healthy, and they're not. So, I like the lean here. And Wizards, as we said, have played very well over the last month or so. So I hope they make the playoffs. I would love to pull the Celtics out and put them in. But yeah, I like your call here on maybe taking a shot a little bit with the Wizards. Next one, Memphis headed on the road to take on Toronto. Toronto getting a healthy number here. Grizzlies laying 6, total 226.5. This is a touchy number to lay with the Grizzlies. This is a group that have been in a lot of close games recently. And for as good as they are against the number, 40-26 against the spread, I think when you look at it with a fine-tooth comb, in 66 games, I would love to know how many games they've been laying more than 2 buckets, because I'm going to guess it's probably not been good. I didn't go ahead and look at that. But Toronto's not going to make the playoffs, but they have played pretty honorably. A lot of weird results for the Grizzlies, a lot of weird losses. That loss the other night to the Pistons was disturbing, I thought, especially for a team that's really right on the seesaw of the playoffs. Not really run into the window to bet on the Memphis Grizzlies. Only thought that I really had here when I looked at this one, I didn't really have much on the total or the side. Grizzlies beats have been brutal in totals this year because they've been somewhat low at times. Jonas Valanciunas rebounds. Toronto's one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. You're not getting a ton of value, though. His rebound prop's 12.5, which is what he averages. But again, Toronto is one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. So Valanciunas could be in for it. He had a 20 rebound performance in the first game these two teams played. So that might be worth a look here. Well, any thoughts? I didn't have much on this one.
Yeah, these are two teams that I haven't been able to handicap now going on 2 months. You kind of brought up some of the weirdness and uncertainty around the Grizzlies results. A lot of that, in my opinion, boils down to some super inconsistent performances from their leader, Ja Morant, who's a sophomore. So should it be super surprising that they're not able to give you honest effort night in, night out? And then Toronto, you're right. Like at first glance, like, come on, Grizzlies on the road are laying 6, get out of here. But Toronto's going to be without everybody except for Pascal Siakam. No Lowry, no Van Vliet, no Anunoby here. Toronto also, for whatever it's worth, like you've gotten a better effort from them when they've been on the road against kind of pretty decent competition. They've given you kind of a try hard. At home in Tampa, where they seem to be pretty checked out against a team like the Grizzlies, I have no idea if they show up tonight. So this was an easy scratch.
Yeah, I think it's one of the tougher games of the card. I will say one of the weirdest decisions at the trade deadline, probably in the history of this league, was keeping Kyle Lowry on Toronto. I don't understand that thought process at all, especially when he's a free agent. I don't know why you would. Why not? You're not going to win. Like, I don't know what they saw that no one – like, send him to the Heat. I mean, I thought if the Heat could have got Kyle Lowry, that would have been a nice – or whoever. It just seemed like they were the ceiling they wanted was too high. I don't understand that.
Especially considering the Heat swung and missed on Oladipo.
Yeah, sure. And they could have really used Kyle Lowry because this group offensively for the Heat at times has not looked good. But yeah, I will say, you mentioned a lot of guys out for Toronto tonight. They have been honorable though recently. I mean, been really hanging in every game against tough competition. But without some of those guys tonight, you got to wonder. It's just a weird game. No real interest. This should be a good one. Brooklyn at Denver. Is it just me or does Denver play every night? It seems like they play every night. Brooklyn laying 3.5 here at Denver, total 232. Another tough game for Brooklyn. Are we just ready to say that without James Harden, they're not that great? I mean, because they aren't. When you look at win-losses, Kevin Durant off a bad game, didn't play well, didn't shoot the ball well. Have to figure that's not going to happen again. This is a Denver team, very slow-paced but very efficient, kind of middle of the road defensively. Brooklyn is downright bad defensively. What you have on the court here in this game are just two teams that make shots, shot creators everywhere. It was clear in Brooklyn's recent games, particularly against Milwaukee, they can't defend good bigs. They just can't. They don't have the firepower. This total at 231 is too low. These are two good offenses. These are teams with shot makers everywhere. Brooklyn can't stop Jokic. I don't think Denver can stop Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. High-level shot makers. I'm going over the total. This is a play for me. What do you like?
I've had a weird week with Brooklyn.
Who hasn't?
I played the Bucks in game 1 of that 2-game series and got a win, and then I went flip-flop and tried to get cute and go with the Nets in game 2. And going to that fourth quarter, they were coming on. It was looking competitive, and then Kevin Durant had just an absolute nightmare of a fourth quarter. The Bucks give up like a 22-1. I mean, the Nets give up a 22-1 run. They're getting pushed around, physical battles. They lost all of them. They lose 2 in a row to the Bucks. It's not great. And then I think, okay, well, here's your opportunity to bounce back then later that week against the Mavericks. And it's freaking deja vu all over again. They fight hard for 3 quarters. They take a lead into the fourth quarter, and then they just no-showed. And Kevin Durant's closing quarters in these last 2 games against good teams have been awful. And I am not going to read too much into that because I remember not that many years ago, the Warriors absolutely stinking with Durant down the stretch and people being like, oh, well, I guess they're not going to win the title this year. And then they flipped the switch on the playoffs and they were unbeatable and he was unguardable. So it's possible that that's the same sort of arc we're on here with these guys and Kevin Durant, but for sure, that I'm going to back to the well here with Brooklyn. Price is short at 3.5. Denver is in a terrible spot, having played the Jazz last night, and Denver really they fired some bullets last night. They were really trying to win that game, and they still lose by 7. They just don't have the shot creators right now because, without Murray, without Monte Morris, without Will Barton, the guard play is just pretty sad. And I think this is the kind of game where Kyrie can go for 50. He's been playing extremely well lately. He just hasn't had the ball in his hands when they've needed it late. It's been Kevin Durant's hands, and he's been the turnover machine. So this is sort of like the last Nets game I'm going to bet during the regular season, probably, especially if they lose. But I think they give you an honest effort against Denver. I laid the 3.5 on the road, and I'm probably not going to watch this one.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because, as you said, Brooklyn, it's not been a great week for them. I hear you on the guard play. It's not, and we talked about that yesterday. I mean, look, Campazzo is a tough kid. He plays hard, but it's not ideal to have him and Austin Rivers as your guards. But I'm willing to believe Porter's been very good. Jokic has been the MVP. I'm willing to think we can get 30 combined from Millsap and Gordon. I think they can at least add to the scoreboard here. I will say this. This could be a really good candidate for a first half over. These are two of the top offensive teams in the first half in the NBA. I think both are averaging about 59 a game. This has all the makings of 64-59 in the first half. So, but the Nets are due, and I think the guard play is just better. And look, Denver has seemingly answered a lot of calls, but I was a little disappointed with their effort late last night against the Utah Jazz. But again, I think there's enough shot creators on the court for both teams. Good offense, efficient offense, and two teams that I think defensively aren't great. I'm going to go over. I feel like this number should be a little higher. Kind of screams to me like a 124, 117 type of game, something like that. So I'm going to go over 231. Do like the Nets in Wales game call as well. Katie off a bad game. You have to figure that another one isn't going to happen. All right, next one. By the way, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Whether you're watching live or after the fact, we're here every day. I am here every day, noon Eastern, bringing you handicappers from around the basketball community. Talk about the card each day. We are presented by Pickswise and powered by FanDuel. So thanks for joining us. If you have a comment or question, feel free to let it fly. We have a small but very smart basketball crowd in here. So let's get into the next game. Got Houston at Utah. A couple of years ago, this had been a good matchup, but not necessarily this year. Utah is laying 15.5, total 225.5. And this has been the tour that's going on right now. The Houston Rockets get destroyed tour. They started tanking a long time ago. They're the worst team in the NBA against the number. They're 16-51 straight up. Jesus. I will give them some respect. Last night, played pretty well. Listen to this rotation for Houston last night. These are the players that played. And I want most of the audience to ask themselves, have they heard of any of these players? If Kenyon Martin Jr., if his father didn't play in the league for years, would anyone know who that is? No.
Kenyon Martin Jr.?
Yes, he was a starter last night. Anthony Lamb. Do you know who that is?
No. Is he really?
I do.
He went Lamb?
And the only reason I know who he is because I know about every college basketball team. And yes, he was a star at Vermont University for a lot of years.
Oh my God.
But he's not an NBA player. We do know who Kelly Olynyk is. So there you go. Daquan Jeffries. Do you know who that is?
I know Daquan Jeffries, but I don't know him as a long-term winning player in the NBA.
Yeah, went to Tulsa. DJ Augustine. Know who he is, but I don't know if it's for good reasons. He's kind of been a journeyman point guard for a lot of years.
Yeah. He had a hot moment for the Magic two playoffs ago, but other than that, he's uber washed.
We know who Daniel House is. He only played 16 minutes, though. He's been a pretty big disappointment for a year or two now. What about Armani Brooks? Do you know about him?
No.
Okay. Went to Houston. Did contribute 19 last night. And Kyrie Thomas. What about him?
Never heard of him.
Went to Creighton. Didn't do much either, though, in the NBA. That was the rotation last night for the Rockets. And
I'm still tripping that K. Martin Jr. is Kenyon Martin Jr. I didn't know that.
Yes, that's how old you are. So
he looks like Kenyon Martin. Oh, my God.
Yeah, he does.
Holy shit.
But it's funny because he didn't go to college. I kind of had him scouted as he's one of those guys that will make the league because he's Kenyon Martin's kid. If he was, Kenyon Nadu, he wouldn't have, I don't think he would have been in the NBA.
He was 6 for 10 from 3 last night. See, that's the weird thing about the Bucks, and that's why I have the Bucks on like fade alert in the playoffs still. Is like if you're giving Kenyon Martin Jr. open looks for 3 and he's going 6 for 10 against you, that's a problem.
Yeah, no, and that's what I look in when I look at this game. I say, okay, I feel like those guys last night had their day in the sun, and now you have a game tonight. Back to back, you're only going to have 8 guys tonight. This could get ugly. And I'm not saying just ugly. We saw last Saturday, the Oklahoma City Thunder lost by 52. I don't know if they'll lose by 52, but if I were able to bet this, and I actually might, I might have a small play in this game on an alternate line of 25 for the Utah Jazz. I have a feeling this could be one of those 140 to 105 type of games. I think this could get ugly.
If there's one thing that the Jazz have been consistent on this season, it's been just absolutely dropping a nuke on the bad teams in general. Yeah. You saw them do it twice against San Antonio. They would have covered 20 against San Antonio, I think, both games. So why not?
And here's the problem with the Utah Jazz. They're kind of limping as well. They have a couple guys out too, so they can't necessarily, I think, go into the bench, I think, as deep as they might want to. And as you said, you continue to roll out the fact that they have beaten up bad teams this season. Now, again, they're only laying 15 here. I think you have some fun with this game. It's one that I wouldn't be betting the Rockets here ever.
Yeah. Could you see an honest first quarter and then get a cheaper price on the Jazz, or
I don't know that I can
not get cute, just pre-flop.
I think
Jazz.
The Rockets have like one game over 2 weeks where like they'll play pretty well, and that's that.
That was last night.
And we've seen the Bucks do
okay.
that. They've had a couple of those games.
All right, I'm in. Jazz 15. Let's go.
So
I do agree with you though. If at a number like 15, you might as well sell some points. Sell some points. Don't lay Vig. Don't lay Vig on 15. Sell out to 16. Like, what's the difference?
Now,
really,
keep
at this
in mind,
point, yeah.
At FanDuel right now, Jazz minus 25.5 plus 285. Kind of feel like I want a little more, maybe, but
yeah. I'm more like give me like 16 at plus 101 ish. You know?
Okay, let's say 16.5 plus 104.
Yeah, there we go.
Eliminate the juice. That's what you have to do. And that's what I talk about in baseball. Anytime, if you're going to bet baseball, any chance you get to play plus money, you have to find a way to do it. So if it's instead of laying 130 in a game, lay minus a half a run in the first 5 and eliminate the bullpens and get plus money. You got to do that. And this is a good game to do it in. You've got to be looking at ways to save a little cash. So there you go. All in all, it's Jazz or pass. You shouldn't be betting the Rockets here in this situation. All right, couple of more here, and then we'll wrap this thing up on a Saturday. Thanks for watching. As always, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. The goal is to continue to improve the subscriber base, which we're doing. We're getting into the stretch run of the NBA all the way through the finals. So keep watching every day at noon. This is a game I am on. This is a best bet for me. Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Warriors laying 14, total 224.5. As we know, the other night, the Warriors played the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they won by 21, 118-97. Keep in mind, Steph and Curry did not play in the fourth quarter, I think at all, and they still were able to wax the Thunder. The Thunder suck. Outside of Lugan's Dort and here and there, Pokashevsky, who didn't play the other night, this is another bad roster. This is a roster that doesn't have. They have 3 or 4 players that I've actually never heard of, which is pretty crazy due to my esteemed college basketball knowledge. I don't know who Josh Hall is. I've never heard of Josh Hall. I don't know who Charlie Brown Jr. is either.
Never heard of those 2 names up, and I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Are you making names up?
No, these are truly players. Gabriel Deck. I have no idea who that is. Okay.
This is why I don't cap college basketball. You got to know like these insane names. Like,
yeah,
way too many players.
Very nerdy. I am for sure. All right. So what am I going to play here? Okay. Obviously, you know what I'm going to play here. Well, I've played Steph Curry over threes probably 10 of the last 10 games.
I dig it.
And I think I've hit 9 of the last 10. Now, the only reason I didn't hit the other night, listen to this. Talk about books adjusting. Steph Curry, they would throw out every night 5.5, and it started at 120. Then it went to 130. Then it was 160. Then it was 180. And then they said, you know what? We're not going to get beat on this anymore. We're going to elevate it to 6.5 threes at plus 110. Steph Curry, 6 threes the other night, doesn't play the fourth quarter and barely plays the second quarter. And he still got the 6. At plus money, he hit 11 in the first game these two teams played, 6 the second, 6.5 tonight. Again, I'm not jumping off this anytime soon. Keep in mind as well, Steph Curry has scored 35 or more in 12 of the last 19 games. He has 35.5 tonight on a prop. Oklahoma City suck. They can't defend Steph Curry. Steph's going to have plenty of looks here. The volume's there. I'm doing 2 Curry props tonight. Curry over 11.5 for Seth. Curry over 6.5 for Steph in threes. That's what I'm playing here. It's plus money. I'll be on it. What do you like here? Anything?
I played the Warriors last game. I laid the 14.5, 15, and it never felt like it was in doubt. I thought hard about going back to the well here, but I'll pass here just because I don't love that the numbers come in a little from our close last time. I don't get that. There maybe you get a little bit more honest effort out of Oklahoma City here, but your Curry prop is a fun one, and I'll tell you why. They need to sell tickets to that Chase Arena, man.
Yeah.
They need to make their money back on that puppy because they are in a huge hole debt-wise as a franchise for building that new arena in San Francisco, leaving Oakland in the dust, and to whatever they can do to generate interest in the city. And that means, Steph Curry, put on a show, buddy.
Is it that bad out there, really?
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's
not
tough
really.
day.
I mean, they have tech money. They probably all have Bitcoin money. They're probably not really hurting, but at the same time, they're in some pretty decent amount of debt. They had to sell part of the franchise to cover some of the debt for building that arena.
Weirdly enough, kind of connecting to this, I saw a disturbing thing the other day. The Sacramento Bee reported that I guess someone in California government pointed out that it might be tough at certain points this summer to keep the lights on. Is that true?
In where?
Like with the electrical grids in California? Like it's
I'd be surprised.
Is that normal, blackouts and stuff?
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I mean, I guess they're expecting an especially hot summer, and it's going to be a drain on the power grid. But
I guess that's kind of a
power is
norm.
pretty resilient. We have some pretty aggressive green energy policies. We have a ton of wind, a ton of solar.
That's true.
We buy a bunch of natural gas and coal that's burned in the desert. Bring it in on the power lines, but I would be surprised if we have energy issues. But the bigger problem for California this summer is going to be wildfire season. Is going to be
which
nasty.
Is
going to be
sad.
nasty. We got a really, really low rainfall winter. Not a lot of snow up in the mountains. It's going to be dry.
Yuck. That sucks. We'll pray for all of you out there. That is something that, thank God, I don't have to deal with. But I guess right now, the show in town is Stephen Curry, okay? And again, against teams like Oklahoma City, you got to sell him. And look, again, the volume is always going to be there for these three props. I mean, he's always going to shoot 17, 18, 19 threes again. That's what he does. You're just hoping that he hits 40% of them, and I think these come in. So I'm going to rock with it. Someone's asking, who is this here? Mike Maya says, what is Ty Jerome's point prop? There is none, but that's a good one, actually. There's going to be a lot of garbage time in this game. Ty Jerome's actually played pretty well. I'd figure it's 9.5 if they put it out. If it is 9.5, I might play that. Ty Jerome's been very good recently. He averages about 10 a game. You got to figure this game isn't going to be close. That could be a really good option. He's going to be playing against backups. Ty Jerome is a guy for them that gets, a pretty good run. I mean, 25 minutes a game-ish. So, yeah, we'll see. I think that's worth a look if it comes out. It's not currently out on FanDuel, though. All right, one more here. Final game. Blazers laying 6 against the San Antonio Spurs. Total 232.5. Nice win last night for the Spurs against the Kings, who continue to flounder. Spurs kind of right there in the West. They're poised for a play-in game. Spurs have been an interesting team. Pretty good defensively, not great offensively. It's been kind of a tough at times. I have to wonder where they'd be without Greg Popovich as their coach. I think it'd be a lot worse for them. Blazers have been a tough team to back as a favorite, at least initially in the season. But I will say, weirdly enough, recently, the Blazers laying points have been a pretty good bet. It didn't work last night against a Laker team that I think if you read through the lines, they were going to have a few more people than we thought they would. Not a game I'm real interested in. I think the Spurs are just kind of they can only do so much with the personnel that they have. DeMar DeRozan's been good, but they've had to kind of depend on – and shout out to a guy like Lonnie Walker, who continues to play well for them. Portland, good offensively, but don't defend. Do you like anything here? I didn't have much in this game.
No, this was another easy scratch, and it really just comes down to I was with your sentiment last night that the Lakers were the right side. They were, but it was close. I was with, and really the only reason I felt that way is because I can't trust Portland laying a big number. No way. They're way too streaky. They can close games and get you a close win. But they're not gonna cover a big number, just even against a bad team. The other side of the coin here, San Antonio, I looked at that number last night and they were 5-point favorites on the road to the Kings. And I was like, how is this possible? They just haven't been playing good at all lately. You remember the Spurs lost 2 straight in overtime. Yep. It felt like they kind of quit. After that, the next couple of times out, it was just no show. And I was like, okay, well, I guess the season's over for the Spurs. But then they're 5-point favorites against the Kings. And it's like, what? Somebody just magically knows they're going to try again tonight? Well, yeah, they did. They did try. And so it's tough for me to really put a read on what's going on motivationally with that Spurs team. I don't know if Pop got a hold of them in the in the interim they had before that Kings game and really kind of talked them up. But 6 points is way too much to lay with Portland. So I would be looking for San Antonio or nothing. I just can't trust their motivation right now. Because if this game gets out of hand, if Portland's up big in the second half, San Antonio going to try? Are they going to fight and get back in, or are they just going to go back toward, oh, well, I guess, yeah, I remember now, we quit. So this was an easy one to skip. I'm
going to guess there are nights where Greg Popovich wants to pull his hair out of his head. I mean, and if you look on the sidelines, I mean, this is a young team. When you really look at them outside of DeRozan, you have an older Rudy Gay. Murray's been solid at times, but they're young, they're inexperienced, but they're right there. If this were any other coach, this team would be a bottom 5 or 6 team in the NBA. They've done just enough by having Popovich around to be in the mix, but they're a tough team because they quit. They don't play hard. That was a tough cover last night if you're able to receive it. All right, let's wrap it up here with a best bet or two. I'll throw a few out there. Seth Curry over 11.5 points. I'll keep rocking with that. Steph Curry over 6.5 threes. And I'm going to go over 231, Brooklyn and Denver. I'm just going to trust the shot makers there for the Nets. And look, Jokic, Porter, Aaron Gordon. I think there's enough there offensively against a bad defense. Should be a pretty good pace for an over 231 there. Whale Capper, what do you like? Anything that's really out there for you?
Kind of a low confidence card in general for me tonight. This is a do or die for me with the Nets in the regular season. I laid the 3.5. If this has not come through, then I'm pretty much skipping all the rest of their games until we get to the playoffs. I'm on the Wiz at 3.5 as well. I think that's a good competitive spot for them to really lay into the weak defense of the Pacers. And then you talked me into Utah minus 15. I think this is a fair look, just considering how Houston comes in after such an honest effort we got from those young lads last night. Now they got to go play in altitude against a team that actually plays defense. This is going to be tough.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I have a small play on that as far as an alternate line. I just think that is a blowout situation. Really is. That Wizards play is solid as well. That guard play for Indiana is bad, and they struggle against good guards as well. And you have two of the best here. All right, let's wrap it up. Ryan C says, Jeff is looking slim and trim. Thank you. I know I am. Shout out to you, Ryan C. I know. I always tell everyone how trim I am because I am. You're right. All right, Whale Capper, the great Whale Capper. Let us know what's going on with you. You have a lot of exciting things that are going on. Where can anyone new that doesn't know who you are, which is crazy because everybody knows who you are. Where can we find you? What do you have going on, Whale Capper?
Yeah, I post all my content on @whale_capper on Twitter. Check out the Deep Dive podcast where we do some interesting long form interviews, some deep dives into gambling topics that you'll find interesting if you're in this space. And then launched the new NBC Sports Edge podcast called Bet the Edge with co-host Sarah Perlman. We interview a lot of great guests. We got to talk to Peter King, Randy Moss, the horse racing expert, last week, and a lot more cool stuff coming up over the next couple weeks as we bring in some NBA voices, some former players, coaches, etc., and talk about how their knowledge can be used in the handicapping of the NBA. So it'll be a fun spring here, and check it all out at @whale_capper.
Well, Capper, one of the best of the business. We'll see what we can do to get you on it going forward. You're the best. Appreciate you jumping on here on a Saturday with me. We will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place, 12 Eastern. It's Mother's Day. We're going to bring in the holiday with all of our mothers out there with a couple of NBA picks. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Well, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Best of luck, buddy.
Yeah, good seeing you. Take it easy. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you Sunday here on the Hoops Betting Hour here on Pickswise presented by FanDuel. Have a great night.